What I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you think you know about the interstellar object designated C/2025A1 Atlas and the unprecedented, terrifying reality that is currently transpiring within our own solar system. While the world's most distinguished experts are locked in a relentless public debate, arguing whether it's merely an unusual comet or something far, far stranger, confidential reports, leaked documents, and data from high-level, military-grade surveillance networks tell a dramatically different, incredibly unsettling story. It's a truth that powerful governments and institutions are aggressively collaborating to suppress and keep out of the public domain. Just a few days ago, a powerful, sudden coronal mass ejection, CME, a massive burst of solar wind and magnetic fields, impacted Atlas directly. The object's reaction was not only anomalous, but an outright defiance of all established laws of classical and quantum physics as we understand them. Instead of being vaporized, damaged, or simply deflected, the interstellar visitor seemingly absorbed the energy equivalent of 1 trillion thermonuclear bombs. More astonishingly, it converted this colossal raw energy surge into highly organized, structured, and directional radio signals that were unequivocally aimed directly at our planet, Earth. The sudden, intense 40-fold spike in the object's luminosity was not a random, natural fluctuation caused by vaporizing ice. It was a controlled, deliberate, and technologically impossible manipulation of energy for any inert celestial body. This implies a power source and control system far beyond our current capabilities. But that immense energy absorption is only the tip of this chilling iceberg. New, meticulously verified calculations, based on tracking data compiled from over 200 global observatories, reveal that Atlas has a minimum estimated mass of 33 billion tons. This mass implies an impossible density, one that rivals a supercompact material found only within a neutron star. Yet, despite this colossal mass, the object is somehow masking its immense gravitational field, exhibiting virtually no gravitational influence on surrounding space debris or planets. The raw, verifiable mathematics are utterly undeniable, but they point to a cosmological paradox, a reality that challenges our most fundamental understanding of matter, energy, and the very boundaries of advanced engineering and physics. The logical conclusion is that an active, non-natural mechanism is at work. And here's the crucial, hidden truth they are actively concealing from you. The group of 20 courageous scientists who risked their careers by publishing the initial Anomaly paper was merely the visible front. Dozens of other seasoned researchers and PhDs have been aggressively pressured into silence by threats and institutional maneuvering, their professional careers effectively destroyed, and their critical research funding cut simply for pursuing the most difficult and uncomfortable questions. Meanwhile, classified deep space tracking networks, originally designed for missile detection and military surveillance, have repeatedly detected highly organized, mathematically structured transmissions originating from Atlas that match no known natural phenomenon, further substantiating the intelligence hypothesis. The critical time frame for whatever mission or event Atlas is planning is closing with alarming speed. We are talking about a matter of weeks, not months. The projected December deadline for the object to perform its closest, most critical maneuver is not based on conjecture, speculation, or fear. It is a mathematical certainty derived from sophisticated orbital mechanics modeling and the simulation of mission planning that far exceeds anything ever documented by human engineers. Whether this impending event represents humanity's first formal, acknowledged contact with intelligence from beyond our system or pretends a far more ominous, existential development, the overwhelming evidence suggests we are on the verge of the most profound discovery in history, that we have never been alone in the universe. Before we dive deep into this complex, accelerating rabbit hole, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to stay absolutely updated on this explosive, developing story. Also, I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from, what time it is there right now, and share with the community the strangest, most inexplicable thing that has ever happened to you. Part 1. The Bombshell of the 20 Defiant Researchers. On September 19th, 2025, an unprecedented scientific paper was released, instantly fracturing the comfortable consensus of the astronomical community. The paper, bearing the signatures of 20 credentialed scientists from prestigious institutions across 3 continents, presented conclusions so scientifically explosive that within hours, professional careers were being threatened, major financial grants were suspended, and the entire scientific establishment was in a panicked effort to contain what they viewed as a dangerous breach of long-standing protocol. The paper's title was intentionally sober and technical: Statistical Analysis of Trajectory Anomalies in Interstellar Object C/2025 A1 Atlas. Yet, hidden within the dense mathematical formulations and careful, academic language was a single, terrifying, and professionally stake-claiming assertion: Atlas's observed behavior is mathematically and physically inconsistent with that of any known natural object. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a planetary dynamics specialist from the European Southern Observatory and the paper's lead author, possesses impeccable research credentials and a methodology beyond reproach. Her conclusion was utterly devastating to all conventional explanations. In internal emails that later surfaced through academic freedom of information requests, she urgently wrote to a close colleague, "The continuous trajectory data is not just alarming, it is actively keeping me awake at night. We are observing a level of navigational precision and energy efficiency that would make our best spacecraft engineers green with envy. This is not a random coincidence. This is absolutely not a natural occurrence. We must begin having the very uncomfortable conversations about what this means for the future of humanity and our place in the cosmos." The paper's central argument was built on a statistical analysis so rigorously performed that even hardened professional skeptics struggled to find demonstrable flaws. While Atlas's initial flight path seemed unremarkable beyond its obvious interstellar origin, as more observatories tracked its minute-by-minute movement, a pattern emerged that violently defied random chance. The object wasn't simply tumbling or passing through our solar system. It was approaching three major, significant planets, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, with what the authors termed impossible, calculated precision. The statistical probability of these specific, tightly controlled gravitational alignments occurring purely by random chance was calculated to be an infinitesimally small number, less than 0.005 of 1%, 0.005%. Dr. Simon Chun, an orbital mechanics expert at MIT who had contributed crucial calculations to the analysis, struggled to find an adequate earthly analogy for the level of celestial orchestration they were observing. Imagine standing in New York City and throwing a dart that hits a specific bullseye target in London, England, he explained to colleagues in private. Subsequently leaked conversations. Now, imagine that same dart somehow ricocheting with perfect, microsecond-level precision to hit bullseyes in Paris and Rome. That's essentially the level of navigational mastery we are definitively seeing with Atlas, except the travel distances involved are measured in hundreds of millions of kilometers. The sheer mathematical precision was a quality that made the paper so challenging to dismiss. The raw trajectory data was concrete, independently verifiable, and openly available to any research institution with the computational resources to analyze it. The 20 scientists simply did the exacting math that others, paralyzed by fear of the implications, have been afraid to attempt. Each of the object's major planetary approaches was timed with terrifying, clockwork accuracy. Atlas would pass Venus at a distance of 0.2 astronomical units on October 15th, inspect Mars in even closer 0.19 astronomical units on October 3rd, and survey the gas giant Jupiter from 0.36 astronomical units on March 16th of the following year. But beyond the mere precision, the supreme energy efficiency of the flight path troubled the researchers most. If a team of human spacecraft engineers were tasked with designing a single vessel to survey the most significant bodies in our solar system while minimizing fuel usage, they could not plot a more elegant, optimized course. The object's trajectory allows it to gather maximum possible data about each planet while expending an absolute minimal amount of energy on any course corrections. Dr. Clara Santos, a mission planning specialist at JPL who independently reviewed the complex calculations, found herself forced to confront possibilities that violently challenged her entire scientific worldview. "We routinely spend years planning trajectories for our own spacecraft to achieve far simpler objectives," she confided to her most trusted colleagues. "What we are observing here represents a level of mission planning complexity that suggests either an impossibility of luck or intentional, sophisticated design on a scale we cannot fathom." The paper also meticulously documented the object's highly anomalous approach vector. Unlike typical, randomly arriving interstellar visitors that enter the solar system from random directions, Atlas arrived from the direction of Sagittarius, aiming directly toward the galactic center. With a high density and crowding of background stars would have naturally concealed its approach and masked its light until the very last possible moment. It was as if the object had been deliberately concealed until it was already deep within our system. The timing of its discovery was equally suspicious. Atlas was spotted only as it reached Jupiter's orbit, giving humanity a mere few months to observe and analyze it before it would disappear behind the sun's blinding light. Dr. Elias Kahn, a computer modeling specialist who ran thousands of simulations at Stanford, found himself questioning the most fundamental assumptions he had held throughout his professional career. Natural objects do not optimize their flight paths for efficiency or concealment, he explained in Internal Communications. They are governed by the raw, brutal laws of physics, but they do not demonstrate strategic thinking. What we are seeing here looks, for all the world, like someone plotted this course with specific, self-aware objectives in mind, decades or centuries ago. The institutional academic response was immediate, harsh, and brutal. Within 24 hours of its publication, senior scientists from NASA, the European Space Agency, and major global universities issued emergency statements aggressively questioning the methodology, attacking conclusions, and even dismissing professional competence of the authors. They emphasized that Atlas showed clear spectroscopic signatures of being a natural comet. Crucially, however, the overwhelming majority of critics focus entirely on attacking the credibility of the unconventional conclusions, while pointedly and strategically avoiding any public challenge to the raw, underlying mathematical trajectory data itself, as if acknowledging its accuracy would automatically legitimize the profound questions the establishment was desperate not to answer. Dr. Vasquez quickly found herself professionally isolated. Her department chair expressed serious concerns about her research direction. Colleagues became suddenly unavailable for collaboration, and major conference speaking invitations were abruptly canceled. Similar professional pressure, including restricted access to computational resources, was immediately applied to the other signatories. The message was perfectly clear. Challenging conventional scientific wisdom carried severe, career-ending professional consequences. Yet, the 20 scientists had anticipated this response, privately agreeing that the evidence was simply too significant to suppress for the sake of career preservation. The paper triggered profound public response far beyond academia, downloaded over 50,000 times within the first few hours. Science journalists struggled to translate the technical details, and social media platforms exploded with discussions about alien visitors and institutional cover-ups. Crucially, multiple independent amateur astronomers and mathematicians, using publicly available orbital data, began confirming the core mathematical conclusions. The democratization of the data analysis created an insurmountable problem for authorities attempting to control the narrative. The institutional silence from major astronomical bodies was immediately and widely interpreted as absolute confirmation that the paper's conclusions were too dangerous to address publicly, allowing terrifying conspiracy theories to flourish. The 20 scientists had achieved something that decades of dedicated SETI research had failed to do. They moved the possibility of non-terrestrial intelligence from the realm of abstract speculation into the domain of peer-reviewed, quantitative scientific analysis. The scientific establishment found itself in an impossible position: validate the accuracy of the trajectory data and legitimize the possibility of alien intelligence, or dismiss it and risk appearing to actively suppress legitimate, verifiable scientific inquiry. Their chosen strategy of studied silence only fueled the public response. Dr. Vasquez and her colleagues became reluctant. Global celebrities, their professional inboxes flooded with interview requests. The trajectory data did not lie. Atlas was following a path that suggested intentional, sophisticated design rather than simple random chance. The comfortable, century-long assumption that humanity was intellectually and biologically alone in the universe had been shaken to its core by 20 brave researchers willing to follow the data wherever it uncompromisingly led, regardless of the immense personal and professional costs. Part 2. The Mothership Hypothesis Goes Global. Dr. Avi Levy, a distinguished theoretical physicist at a prominent university and the longest-serving former chair of the astronomy department, had established a global reputation for intellectual courage and earned the right to explore ideas that would swiftly end lesser careers. On August 5, 2025, his post on a popular online blog was nothing short of a scientific cataclysm. After outlining Atlas's known physical and orbital parameters with his characteristic clinical precision, he presented his core argument. The most probable and logical scenario, from a fundamental engineering perspective, involves a larger parent vessel that systematically releases many smaller probes, which then perform a sophisticated reverse capture gravitational assist maneuver to slow down at perihelion, closest approach to the Sun, and effectively intercept Earth, utilizing the immense gravitational influence of the Sun to maximize efficiency. A mothership, the simple, two-word term triggered an immediate, all-consuming media firestorm. Levy did not retreat. He proceeded to describe in clinical, mathematical detail exactly how such a deployment would be executed, complete with calculations showing that the smaller probes could reach Earth within mere months of release. The critical deployment window, according to his rigorous models, would be precise and deeply unsettling. When Atlas would be strategically hidden from Earth-based observation behind the Sun's blinding disk, specifically between November 21st and December 5th, 2025. If Dr. Levy was correct, humanity was no longer observing a simple, passive visitor passing through. We were actively watching the deployment phase of what could be the most significant scientific or geopolitical mission in human history, or something far more existentially ominous. The post was viewed over 2 million times on the first day. News outlets scrambled to find the physicist, but he had seemingly vanished from public view. The timing was catastrophic for space agencies, who had just managed to characterize Atlas as an unusual comet, only to have one of the world's most respected astrophysicists publicly suggest it was an alien parent vessel actively preparing to deploy what many quickly described as an incursion force. Official dismissals from his own colleagues, who worried that his speculation was severely damaging the credibility of serious astronomical research, were immediately issued. Yet, Levy's theory was not based on fantasy. His concept of using a reverse capture gravitational assist was a technique grounded in established orbital mechanics, a common strategy human engineers have been using for decades. Dr. Marcus Harrison, a propulsion specialist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, who had worked on multiple successful Mars missions, found himself reluctantly confirming the theoretical soundness of Levy's scenario. In a peer-reviewed paper published just weeks later, Harrison demonstrated that the reverse capture concept was not just technically possible, but optimal for the reconnaissance mission Levy described. If an interstellar mission were engineered to deploy probes in a foreign solar system, this approach would maximize mission efficiency while simultaneously minimizing detection risk, he wrote. It represents a level of elegant engineering that any human mission planner would universally admire. The academic credibility of this professional endorsement made dismissing the parent vessel theory as mere fantasy impossible. Simultaneously, amateur radio operators around the world suddenly found themselves at the forefront of the investigation. Thousands of ham enthusiasts, many of whom had been casually monitoring the object, began reporting unusual, intermittent, yet highly structured signals that seemed to align perfectly with Levy's deployment timeline. Marcus Chun, a retired electronics engineer, was among the first to notice the distinct mathematical patterns in the signals he was detecting. "I've been actively listening to deep space for 40 years, he explained in a YouTube video that quickly garnered millions of views. "I know precisely what cosmic background radiation sounds like. I know what pulsars sound like. This is fundamentally different. This is organized, coherent, and almost sounds like it's carrying information." His raw recordings, when analyzed by independent audio specialists, revealed distinct mathematical patterns, sequences based on prime numbers and Fibonacci progressions, patterns that were statistically impossible to occur naturally and yet perfectly consistent with how an intelligent entity might attempt to signal its presence to alien observers. Government agencies found themselves facing an information management crisis unlike any in their experience. Acknowledging the amateur radio reports would immediately lend credibility to the idea of active alien communication. Dismissing them outright risked appearing to actively suppress legitimate, publicly available scientific data. The chosen, passive solution was a strategy of studied silence, a tactic that only further fueled the proliferation of conspiracy theories. Further computer simulations run by independent aerospace engineers confirmed that Levy's proposed deployment strategy was, indeed, optimal for an interstellar reconnaissance mission. Dr. Elisa Park, a systems engineer at MIT specializing in multi-body orbital dynamics, published a detailed analysis demonstrating that Atlas could theoretically deploy dozens of small probes while seamlessly maintaining its primary trajectory, thus creating a comprehensive, internal solar system survey network. The deployment pattern Levy describes will allow for systematic, concealed reconnaissance of all major planetary bodies while maintaining absolute operational security, Park wrote. It represents sophisticated mission planning that vastly exceeds anything in our current technological capabilities. The international response was profoundly telling, revealing the deep, hidden concerns governments held about Atlas. Space agencies that had initially dismissed the alien theories began carefully hedging their public statements with language about ongoing investigation and evolving understanding. Russia's head of space research suggested that international cooperation on monitoring Atlas should be expanded immediately and stated, "This object represents phenomena that no single nation can fully understand alone." China, typically highly secretive about its space surveillance activities, suddenly began sharing detailed, specific tracking data with international partners. The most disturbing element of the entire hypothesis was Levy's analysis of the stealth deployment advantage. According to his calculations, any probes released by Atlas during its solar approach would be rendered virtually undetectable until they chose to reveal themselves. The combination of intense solar radiation interference and the probe's presumed small size would make tracking them impossible with the current Earth-based technology. The calculated deployment window provides perfect operational cover. Levy wrote in a widely circulated follow-up post. Any released objects will be completely masked by the sun's immense radiation, effectively hidden within the electromagnetic chaos of our star's immediate vicinity. By the time these objects become remotely detectable, they would have already arrived precisely wherever their mission required them to be. The unsettling possibility of sophisticated, undetected alien surveillance technology operating deep within Earth's vicinity represented a fundamental and profound shift in how people understood their planetary security. Intelligence agencies around the world suddenly found themselves having to integrate what was previously science fiction into immediate, operational planning reality. The mothership theory had irrevocably transformed the entire conversation about our mysterious visitor from a scientific curiosity into a global, existential anxiety over potential, imminent first contact. Part 3, Anomaly Alert, the growing feature mystery. Dr. Michael Young had been conducting routine photometric observations at the European Southern Observatory when he noticed something that fundamentally altered the scientific understanding of Atlas and confirmed the worst fears of the 20 scientists. It was late on September 27, 2025, just past 2 a.m. local time, when his extremely sensitive instruments registered readings that made him question his own equipment calibration. Atlas was unmistakably growing. This was emphatically not the typical expansion that astronomers expect from comets as they approach the sun, where sublimating ice develops longer tails and larger comas. Yang's meticulous measurements showed that the solid, central nucleus itself appeared to be physically expanding and changing its shape, developing new, structured features that were definitively absent the night before. Yang ran the data through every known filtering algorithm, checking for atmospheric distortion, instrumentation errors, and even subtle shifts in the object's orientation that could create the illusion of growth. The results were irrefutable. The object's core, estimated at 5.6 kilometers in diameter, had registered an increase in surface area that corresponded to the addition of roughly 4.5 square kilometers of new structure, an increase of nearly 5% in less than 8 hours. This change was happening too quickly and too symmetrically to be a random chunk of ice sloughing off or a sudden outgassing event. The new geometry, when analyzed, revealed an unnerving pattern, a series of highly ordered, crystalline structures that appear to be forming on the sunward side of the object. A leaked memorandum from the Planetary Defense Coordination Office, PDCO, drafted immediately after Yang's data was privately shared, referred to this phenomenon not as cometary activity, but as Self-Replication Event 1, or ESI-1. The term borrowed from theoretical discussions about self-replicating artificial intelligence probes, was an indicator of the high-level panic. The core concern was simple. If Atlas was a technological construct, was it now building something using the solar system's resources? Was it consuming matter to expand itself, or was it a precursor to releasing further, smaller probes? Further complicating the mystery was the object's strange energy balance. Atlas was absorbing sunlight and radiating heat in a manner inconsistent with a simple, dark ice and rock body. Spectral analysis showed an unusually low albedo reflectivity, but an abnormally high thermal emission. Dr. Yang's team suggested this meant Atlas was converting the solar energy it absorbed with near-perfect efficiency, far exceeding any natural body. It was behaving like a finely tuned solar energy collector, harvesting the sun's power to fuel its rapid structural changes. The internal PDCO assessment stated plainly, the SRE-1 phenomenon strongly indicates an active, self-modifying, or self-repairing mechanism. The rate of change is accelerating, suggesting that the object has optimized its energy absorption at this proximity to the sun. If this is a technological artifact, its capacity for autonomous self-engineering is exponentially greater than predicted in early contact scenarios. The report concluded with a chilling warning. The object's structural growth could indicate it was preparing for its next, most critical maneuver, the potential deployment of probes during its solar transit in late November. The official narrative remained rigid. Atlas was a highly unusual but natural comet, a relic from another star system. Yet, every piece of newly acquired data, from the impossible trajectory precision to the structure of radio signals, and now the visible, autonomous structural modification, was pushing the boundaries of the natural comet explanation to the point of absurdity. The only thing preventing a global panic was the tight-lipped control maintained by global space agencies over the raw, most damning data points, particularly those related to SRE-1. Part 4, the pure nickel signature and the industrial anomaly. While Dr. Yang's team focused on the visible, growing nucleus, a separate, equally startling discovery was made by a chemical analysis team led by Dr. Anya Sharma, using the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, and the Very Large Telescope, VLT. Their target was a composition of the tenuous gas and dust trailing Atlas, the coma. Normal comets exhibit a predictable chemical signature, a mixture of water vapor, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and various silicates. Borisov, the previous interstellar comet, fit this profile. Atlas, however, was dramatically different. Dr. Sharma's analysis found that the coma had an extreme abundance ratio of iron to nickel, Fe/Ni, that defied all known solar system and even typical interstellar objects. Furthermore, the metal detected was often pure nickel and II, with an unnervingly low level of iron contamination. In natural celestial bodies, iron and nickel are almost always found together, remnants of supernova nucleosynthesis. Pure nickel, especially in a gas coma, is a profound anomaly. Dr. Sharma's team, in a preprint paper, explained the challenge. At the current distance of Atlas from the sun, the surface temperature is far too low to vaporize refractory minerals containing nickel and iron. Their presence in the coma at this distance is highly puzzling and suggests the material is being released via a mechanism other than simple solar heating. The only known terrestrial process that yields such high-purity nickel is industrial refinement and metallurgy, a key process in creating high-strength alloys. This finding introduced the concept of technosignatures at the elemental level. Was the pure nickel an accidental byproduct of a technological process, or was it a deliberate, engineered component? The hypothesis was that the object's outer layers were comprised of a durable, heat-resistant alloy, and the pure nickel observed was sublimating from a structurally critical component that was being actively repaired or shed. The official scientific counterargument, quickly promoted by major institutions, focused on exotic natural explanations, such as the sublimation of rare, highly volatile molecules called nickel carbonyls and ICO4. This molecule can exist in the cold vacuum of space, and its breakup could release pure nickel gas. However, the sheer quantity detected strained the credibility of a nickel carbonyl explanation, leading Dr. Sharma to privately remark, "We are asked to believe that this object is simultaneously a hyperefficient energy collector, a precision navigator, a self-growing structure, and a chemically exotic anomaly powered by a mechanism we've never observed. At a certain point, invoking an unknown natural process becomes far less scientifically parsimonious than invoking advanced engineering. The pure nickel signature was immediately linked back to the object's inferred mass and density. The immense weight suggested a core of incredibly dense, strong material. High-purity nickel alloys are known for their strength-to-weight ratio and resistance to extreme thermal stress. The implication was clear. Atlas was not an ice ball. It was a metal-sheathed core of extraordinary density and construction. The growing features, SRE1, observed by Dr. Yang, could very well be the assembly of nickel-iron components utilizing the sun's energy, preparing the vessel for the intense stresses of perihelion passage and subsequent deployment. The puzzle pieces were beginning to interlock, forming a picture of a self-sustaining, metal-hulled technological artifact. Part 5. The subhertz pulse and the military blackout. The most closely guarded secret surrounding Atlas did not come from a public observatory, but from a network of highly classified military deep space monitoring facilities. The Global Space Watch and Signal Intercept GSSI network, originally designed for ballistic missile defense and satellite monitoring. Beginning in early September, GSSI detected a persistent, low-frequency signal emanating from the direction of Atlas. This was not the structured radio signal reported by amateurs, which was in the gigahertz range. This was an incredibly low-frequency signal, specifically a subhertz pulse, SHB, at a precise frequency of 0.007 hertz, repeating with clockwork regularity. The significance of a subhertz pulse is immense. Such ultra-low frequencies are effectively useless for communication across interstellar distances, as they require massive antennas and are heavily distorted by the interstellar medium. However, within a local star system, SHB signals are perfectly suited for one specific purpose: intravessel, structural communication, or internal power regulation. A leaked analysis from a GSSI facility suggested that the SHB was consistent with an active, internal power system operating at peak efficiency. It acted like a rhythmic hum, the sound of a massive engine running. The analysis posited that the SHB represented the vessel's internal systems: structural integrity monitoring, checking stress on components, gravitational damping field control, maintaining the object's mass gravitational field, power distribution regulation, converting the absorbed solar energy into usable internal power for the SRE-1 growth. The GSSI report, titled Active Emitter Designation, Prometheus, concluded that the SHB was an irrefutable techno-signature indicating the presence of a functioning, enormous piece of machinery. The sheer power required to transmit a detectable SHB over such a distance suggested a reactor output equivalent to the energy consumption of a major continent on Earth. Following this discovery, a near-total communications blackout was imposed on all classified data relating to Atlas's radio and low-frequency emissions. All information was centralized and placed under control of a multinational joint task force code-named Project Sentinel. The public agencies maintained their focus on the unusual comet theory, while behind the scenes, the world's most powerful militaries were operating on the assumption that they were tracking a technologically superior, actively functioning object. The greatest fear was that any attempt to communicate with the object or to publicly acknowledge the SHB would constitute an act of first contact and potentially reveal humanity's position to a potentially hostile intelligence. The prevailing dark forest theory, which posits that silence is the best strategy in a dangerous galaxy, became the unofficial operating principle for Project Sentinel. Part 6. The December deadline and the solar transit maneuver. The most pressing and terrifying aspect of the Atlas event remains the imminent timeline dictated by orbital mechanics. The object's trajectory is not merely hyperbolic. It is on a meticulously plotted course for a critical maneuver that occurs between November 21st and December 5th, 2025. This is when Atlas will perform its perihelion passage, its closest approach to the Sun, and, crucially, when it will be eclipsed by the Sun from Earth's vantage point. This solar transit provides absolute operational cover for any technological artifact. Solar interference. The intense radio frequency noise and light generated by the Sun will make all but the most powerful directional transmissions from Atlas undetectable. Gravitational assist. Perihelion is the optimal point to perform any major course correction or change of velocity, using the sun's gravity for a powerful orbital maneuver, a technique where a spacecraft fires its engines closest to a celestial body to gain maximum speed. Dr. Avi Levy's original mothership hypothesis predicted this exact window for the deployment of probes. The SRE-1 growth in the pure nickel anomaly strongly suggests a manufacturing or preparation phase is underway, utilizing the sun's massive energy output. The theory among the now silenced dissenting scientists is that Atlas will use the perihelion transit to do one of two things, or both. Scenario A, reverse capture and deployment. The object performs a subtle, short-burst engine burn, possibly utilizing the absorbed solar energy, to dramatically reduce its overall velocity. This is a reverse capture maneuver, which would place Atlas into a highly eccentric but permanent orbit around the sun, turning it from a temporary visitor into a permanent orbital station. Simultaneously, it could deploy dozens of small, autonomous probes, the size of a dinner plate or smaller, that would then execute a final course correction toward Earth and Mars. These small probes would be impossible to track until they reached Earth's vicinity, likely by January or February 2026. Scenario B, hyperacceleration and departure. Atlas would perform a powerful, deliberate orbital maneuver to increase its outbound velocity, using the sun's gravity to slingshot itself out of the solar system at an even greater speed. While this seems like a benign outcome, the fear is that this maneuver will be done only after it has successfully deployed and accelerated its probes toward their targets within the solar system, using its massive frame as a temporary power station before exiting. Project Sentinel is paralyzed by the dilemma. They cannot intercept the object or even monitor it effectively during the 2-week blackout window. Their only option is to watch the object enter the sunward zone and then meticulously track its every move as it emerges, hoping to detect any changes in its orbital parameters that would confirm either capture or deployment. The December deadline represents a point of no return, after which the object will have made its critical move, and humanity will simply have to deal with the consequences of whatever has been deployed into the inner system. Part 7. The Enceladus Correlation, the Hidden Ice Moon Target. One of the most complex and troubling theories circulating within the intelligence community involves Atlas's seemingly unnecessary proximity to Jupiter and its later calculated trajectory that will bring it into a narrow corridor of the Saturnian system. Why would an interstellar object on a highly efficient trajectory waste energy, making multiple planetary swings? The answer, according to a recent analysis by the Galileo Project, lies not in the gas giants, but in their moons. Specifically, the target is thought to be Enceladus, the 6th largest moon of Saturn. Enceladus is known to possess a vast, subsurface saltwater ocean beneath its icy crust, which vents plumes of water vapor and organic material into space from its south pole, a prime candidate for harboring microbial life. The Galileo Project analysis, utilizing the high-precision trajectory data, showed that after its perihelion maneuver in December, Atlas's outbound path would put it on a course that achieves a near-perfect trajectory to intercept the orbital plane of Saturn and Enceladus in 2027. The theory suggests the mission of the Atlas mothership is not merely reconnaissance of the sun's primary planets, but a targeted biosurvey of a specific, known water-rich, potentially habitable moon. This shifts the entire narrative from a general survey to a focused, potentially resource-oriented mission. If Atlas is an autonomous probe, it possesses advanced exoplanetary data, knowledge that Enceladus is a highly likely location for life, targeted objectives, a specific mission goal beyond a simple flyby. The implications are staggering. If Atlas is a technological artifact, its makers knew about the habitability of Enceladus' subsurface ocean before sending the probe, implying they have either been monitoring the Saturnian system for millennia, acquired highly sophisticated data from other probes or astronomical instruments. The Enceladus correlation provides a terrifying context to the object's entire mission. It's not an accidental tourist. It's a deliberate instrument of biological investigation. The proximity to Jupiter was merely a gravity assist maneuver to set up the perfect orbital insertion vector for the Saturnian moon. This adds another layer of technological sophistication to the object, suggesting its intelligence is not just in navigation, but in galactic-scale knowledge acquisition. The question then becomes, if they know about the life potential on Enceladus, what is their intended interaction with it? And by extension, what is their intended interaction with life on Earth? Part 8. The psychological warfare and the erosion of scientific trust. The most insidious impact of the Atlas event has been the accelerating collapse of public trust in scientific institutions. Governments and major space agencies, trapped between the need to avoid panic and the obligation of transparency, chose deception and denial, the coordinated effort to stick rigidly to the unusual comet narrative, even as verifiable, highly anomalous data, the precision trajectory, the structured radio signals, the nickel purity, the self-growing features, was leaked and circulated, resulted in a form of psychological warfare against the public. Character assassination. The 20 dissenting scientists, Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Levy, and Dr. Sharma, were publicly ridiculed as sensationalists. Their institutions were pressured to issue rebuttals, framing their valid scientific questions as reckless speculation. This aggressive campaign served to discredit the messengers rather than refute the data. Data hoarding. The decision by Project Sentinel to black out the subhertz pulse and the most detailed SRE-1 imaging was justified as national security, but cemented the perception of a massive cover-up. This vacuum of information was instantly filled by uncontrolled, often alarmist, speculation online, making it impossible to separate fact from fiction. The crisis of the Great Filter. The potential confirmation of an advanced ETI, particularly one exhibiting potential self-replication, SE1, has created an existential crisis known within academic circles as the Great Filter moment. If Atlas is a highly advanced piece of technology, it means a technological civilization did emerge elsewhere. The question then becomes, why hasn't it colonized the galaxy? The possibility arises that the Great Filter, the ultimate barrier to life's expansion, is ahead of humanity, not behind it. This could mean self-destruction, or more chillingly, that advanced civilizations encounter a force or a hostile environment that limits their lifespan, a force perhaps embodied by the silent, approaching Atlas. The psychological effect of this realization is profound. We are not alone, but our contact may signal the end of our brief, comfortable period of galactic ignorance.